know that women control about maybe I think it's $6 trillion now in consumer spending in the US. And they make 83 to 85% of all consumer decisions.
What's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm your host, Rick Jordan. Before we go in here and dive in, share this episode out with 3 people today. I ask this all the time because we don't promote, we don't advertise, we don't take sponsors. The only way we grow is with your help. So please join the army. Fight for us in helping moving people from point A to point B in their lives and leveling them up. Today is a special day because talking with my guest a little bit ago, she's a former circus performer, which is awesome, acro gymnast, tightrope walker, and juggler, but even better, fast forward to the present, after spending a decade of being pregnant, she's co-founder and president of Certify, my company. And we're going to go into some diversity talk today, too, around that, which is really exciting. Heather Cox, welcome.
Thank you so much. You should note, though, I didn't do it after I was pregnant. I did it while I was pregnant. While I was popping out those babies.
What's up, Power Woman?
Yeah.
Nice. That's the circus while you were pregnant?
No, the circus was like back when I was young and limber, between like 6 and 18. Then, we did the college, I was studying abroad, got married, got pregnant, and that's when you start building a business, when you're starting a family at the same time, right? Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I did. That's what everybody does, right? Twins are born. Sure, let's uproot my entire life and financial stability. Twins? I do. Yeah, they're 14 now.
I have twins.
Nice. Fraternal
or
identical?
Identical.
Oh, nice. I loved learning about that too, because mine are fraternal. They're boy and girl. But then when, these whole myths that exist around, hey, they skip a generation and all that other stupid stuff because it's stupid stuff. And I found out because the doc that delivered them delivered like 200 sets of multiples before he got to mine. So impressive doc.
Yeah, totally.
And he was explaining, identical twins are really like, he would call it an act of God.
It's totally a fluke, right? For sure.
I know, which is really cool. I mean, it's like they're like literal 2 blessings there, and then it's the fraternal ones are it's not a syndrome, but that's technically what it's called, I think. But it's called hyperovulation.
Yes, we pump out more eggs than normal, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what happened with my twins. And then of course it's a lot easier for the dude because he's shooting up like 10 million sperm. I mean, you only need 2 to have that happen. But
my husband was really proud of himself.
He was really proud. He was really proud. It's like, I'm sorry, the twins have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, that's a letdown to the male ego. But anyways, but yes, that's awesome. So how old are your twins?
They're 4.
Really cool.
So we are in the thick of it right now. Yeah, and they're all boy.
Interesting. So you have 5 kids. They're all boys. Are those your
No. My oldest, my first and my third are girls. And then number 2, and then my one more, which ended up being twins. We're twin boys.
Oh, interesting. Everyone always asks me the question too around twins. It's like, how'd you do it with twins? I'm like, you know what? Here's the real. They were my first, and you just do, because you don't know any better. And then I say, what I cannot imagine is somebody who has had kids already, singles, and then multiples just decide to show up.
They did.
Yeah. How did that go for you? Because you're used to like 1 at a time, and then it's like, well, hey, there's 2.
So, I think I always say it must have been easier for me because I had experience with other babies, and I also am not super panicked mom. By the time you have 4, you're like, they all lived, we're good. So I didn't stress, like nursing didn't work with them. So we didn't I was just like, I kind of just rolled with the punches and I went with it. I do remember I actually was sending emails from the hospital, and one of my corporate clients had emailed me, and I was like, hey, can I email you back on Monday? I just had twins this morning. And she's like, what? Why are you emailing me? Like, well, I'm just laying here. Like, I can't do anything else right now.
The hard part's done at this point.
They're out, right?
Yeah, I might need a day or 2 to recover, but I'll be back in Friday.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, good gravy. Oh my goodness, I love that. So twins were your final. Your last became 2, which is really awesome. And there's nothing like that experience too. And we're supposed to talk about other really
business
important
stuff,
things like business like diversity and all this fun stuff. We could segue into that too. One of my favorite diversity, and I'm sure this is like nothing exactly at all what you do. Do you watch The Office?
I've watched The Office, the American one, yes.
Okay.
You love The Office. You talk about it a lot. That's really funny.
I know. Because I've watched it for a long time. I haven't watched it in a long time, though. But I remember there was Diversity Day in one of the very, very, very early episodes. And it was just like anti-everything that you would hear corporate teach. It was hilarious, some of these things. I can't remember some of the lines right. It's been a long time since I watched it. But my kids, because they're twins and they're 14 now, it has been reinvigorated in my life because they are getting into The Office now and shows like Friends and Parks and Recreation. Because
they're big now. They're back in. Like Target has T-shirts about it again, and like it's big again.
Yeah, the HBO special, I know. And then everything is just coming full circle. But that's because of last year. I mean, what did people do when they got locked up? They had babies, either had babies, got divorced, but either of those groups watched a lot of Netflix.
It's true.
Or Disney Plus.
I did neither of the two, by the way. I did neither of the
two. That's awesome. But the Netflix maybe, I don't know.
The Netflix maybe, right? Yeah. I love it. But, we were actually so busy. Last year, I will say the one little sparkly, shiny, sequiny thing that came out in 2020 was that people realized the amazing benefit and power of diversity in business. That's like the one thing. As much as 2020 stunk and like we're still like, I have a bunch of conferences next month in November that I'm like itching for. I'm like packing already. My husband's like, usually pack like the day before. I'm like, I'm packing now. I'm like so excited to be back out there traveling. To be with people again that don't live with me all the time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no kidding. So you haven't traveled at all in the past year and a half then for any of this?
Only for like, I have a friend in Northern California. I went to visit her like a couple, my mom's in LA. So like we did that, but no business travel. It's all, because most of our conferences have a lot of the Fortune 1000 that attend for business and sales, whatever. And they're on travel restriction.
Oh, for sure.
They couldn't go. So all the entrepreneurs are like, we'll go.
Oh,
we'll go.
I was 150 nights in a hotel last year.
Yeah,
I was
like,
Yep,
we're like,
exactly.
Well, can't keep us down.
Yeah, you got that right. I feel you there. When you said you visited your mom in Northern California, I'm like, oh. Southern
California. No, my mom's in Southern. She's in LA. Yeah.
LA, okay, cool. Wow, that was like one of the worst for the lockdowns and everything too. Goodness.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, we couldn't see her for a while. She's almost 80. She's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
But we couldn't see her for a while. And so the second we could, got vaccinated. She got back. We all were able to get together. Problem is, I live with 5 Petri dishes. So if the second anything happens, or I was like, is it COVID? Is it allergies? Is it a cold? Right? You freak out. And so that was a little hard. But no, everything's fairly back to normal.
That's intriguing too, and maybe we can unpack this too and have real talk around this too, because I'm sure diversity topics can come up when it came to the pandemic and vaccines. And it's probably pretty interesting the perspective you can bring to that. And coming from the camp of both groups, I feel now, because I tend to look for truth in a lot of things. Really everything. I'm not good. I'm not so caring about people's opinions. It's like, let me do my research and actually find out what's going on here. So, this is the first time I've talked about this on the show, but it's perfect for this topic too, right? I am vaccinated. And also when you're talking about having the 150 nights in the hotel last year, I thought last year at some point I had caught COVID as well. And because there was 2 days that I felt like I had a perpetual asthma attack, which kind of came out of nowhere. And I had asthma when I was a kid. I remember them like, oh, this hasn't been in 20 years.
Right.
Yeah. This is different. And then it was gone after 3 days. Then I was vaccinated in March this year because I do international travel. I have some business in Canada specifically. And then at a live event that I went to with 3,500 people in Florida, just about a month ago, right? And I am vaccinated. I brought home a lovely souvenir of COVID. Yeah,
but you didn't get that sick, right? You didn't die, which is the big perk.
No, what I had felt from this, and this is when I want to dive into the diversity talk and how this plays into the vaccines and all that too, because there's at-risk groups, but there's even racial at-risk groups that are trying to pop up.
Sure.
And it's interesting. But when I came back, I was really, really down for maybe 2 to 3 days ish. I had a fever for 12 hours, but then after that, the lingering feelings probably lasted about a week or so after that. So probably total about 10 days. But the days where I couldn't really move and it felt like just a flu, I'm not even saying a bad flu. It just felt like flu to where I needed to sleep, and I'm thinking, well, the vaccine for me didn't really do anything, and they say it lessens it and all this other stuff.
So it just makes it, you don't die. That's the whole point. You don't die, which to me, like massive perk.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody to get poked, but
I do all day long.
It's everyone's personal decision. Like I said, I did, and I have no issues talking about it. I had my reasons to do it. I also believe in full and natural immunity on some things too. But here's where I look at this from too, and I'm sure this gets into, because now we've seen United Airlines fire a bunch of people over this, right? But now what diversity issues are they going to face? Because I'm sure not all of these people, and this is an interesting conversation, so let's just have real talk, right? Okay. I'm sure not all the people that they fired were white.
Maybe not. Actually, I don't know, but I will tell you, the diversity you're talking about is the DEI, right? The diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's inside your company. That's your employees, which is an enormous part. Like, everybody understands why you have to have diversity in your workforce. Everybody understands why you have to have diversity in your clientele and your customer base. But what I work on is the supply chain, which is totally a different part of the diversity world.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And people really forget about that part of it. But I agree. I'm sure there's going to be once this whole thing wraps up, we are going to see so much interest. I'm sure all the attorneys are like this.
Yeah, for sure.
Like waiting to see what's going down.
Yep. But this is why I'm comparing this, because I understand what you do with diversity with the supply chain and the comparison too, because what's it going to look like coming up now? This is why I'm prefacing it with all the other stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen now? Because the vaccines, will we start to see, in diversity in the supply chain, from what you can see? Have you started to see some trends here to where they'll say, hey, we're only going to do business and put other companies in our supply chain that are vaccinated, that have a vaccine mandate?
That's interesting. We haven't seen that yet. I do know that some of the conferences coming up you have to be vaccinated to go to the conferences, which kind of in essence says I only want to network and market and have these sales meetings with people who are vaccinated. But they haven't put it in like an RFP at this point, meaning like any of the requests for proposals that have come out haven't been like, first question, are you vaccinated? If no, stop filling out the form. So we haven't.
That's what I was curious about, because this is your field of expertise, and coming out of the event a month ago, and then understanding the supply chain issues that we've had over the past year and a half too. And that is why I'm sure your business boomed last year. See, this is so full circle with the pandemic.
Yes, so busy.
Right on. I mean, even all the way, upwards to big tech like Apple, they got screwed from what I saw because of
supply chain.
Exactly. For the new iPhone was almost delayed. The new MacBook that's coming out is delayed because of screen shortages, but then of course we have the microchip shortage with
microchip. I know, right?
God, yeah. It's like, what's this microchip? Isn't there like 10,000?
We've never thought about it.
I know. Exactly. But thanks for allowing me my rant there, and because it all ties together, because that's what I'm seeing. But then I start to think, because the pandemic and the issues that people have had in their supply chains, but now companies are having vaccine mandates. We've got something coming from OSHA, that's coming down too because of the president's executive order. And how is this going to affect supply chain diversity at this point? From what you see, you're saying there's not something on the RFP at this point,
right? Well, I will tell you what it has done. So we all saw the toilet paper crisis of 2020. And we've all seen the chip crisis that we're going through now, right? What do they all have in common? It's supply chain issues. So for years, all these procurement teams, their goal was to have as few suppliers as they possibly could. They were always like, we're shrinking the supply chain, right? We're shrinking. They wanted just a few suppliers. And that was not great for the supplier diversity world, because a good chunk of the diverse suppliers out there are in the small business category, meaning under $30 million in revenue. Oh, yeah. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And so if you need a supplier that can handle nationwide, that really does shrink the population of diverse suppliers that can handle those opportunities. Yeah. However, now that we've gone through these toilet paper crises and these other crises that we're going through, they are now realizing that was not a smart business move. They're now realizing we need to have more suppliers available, and maybe more on a regional basis, because if they can't get it from California to Florida, they can probably get it from California to Nevada. So if we have, and the diverse suppliers the smaller businesses like 30 million and under can handle that type of business opportunity. So it has been a really great opportunity. On top of that, there was all the, racial unrest of the last 20 months that we went through, which also really made a lot of these big companies say, oh, we got to step it up. Like if, we have to really, there's tons of business metrics and statistics that show that working with diverse suppliers makes the company more money, which bottom line is that's why companies do it.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
They're not hearts of gold. Okay, let's be real. Yep, they do it because it makes them money.
It's not to support, and this is you're picking up where I'm going too, because it's not to support a vaccine mandate or go against a vaccine mandate. It's not to support racial diversification when you're putting there. It's to make sure that your profit can stay intact.
100%.
That's what it is. Exactly. Yeah. So
there are side benefits, right? Like economic impact of it is huge, and it makes a lot of good sense. So they can use that for their PR and all the good parts, the feel good that we all like to feel. But the bottom line is it's about the bottom line.
Always about bottom line. I love how your business has taken off, because mine did too last year. Tremendously, with our IPO coming up now in cybersecurity. Yeah, that's awesome. That's another huge thing right now. I was just signing a form right before I jumped on the show with you. Literally right before this, was like, okay, this has to be notarized to go to the SEC now. So there's like just thing after thing after thing. Mm-hmm. But this all came out of last year, and exactly. Even with what we're looking at, I try to diversify exactly where we came from. And this happened at the beginning of the year for us, because we're a little different in that we will put a cycle, a rhythm around an entire office hardware refresh with my service provider company, because it'll be every 3 years, and it's made to keep their technology predictable and reliable. And I saw this same type of scenario come up years ago with there was a flood in a hard drive factory in Taiwan. Oh, this was like 2014. And, having gone through that before, this affected, because every single computer has hard drives that goes into it. All networking equipment has some sort of storage.
Water and hard drives are like
no. Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I was thinking into it, I'm like, why do all the hard drives in the world come from this one place in Taiwan?
Because it's probably the same place the chips come from. There's only one of them in the whole world.
Right on. Exactly. But then going into things last year, it was like March and April. I'm like, okay, here's what we need to do, because all these are on rental programs for 3 years. I'm like, take everybody that's up for renewal in the next 18 months, and we need to bring them all forward right now. We are going to buy them out of their remaining part of the contract, because this is what's right for our clients. Because I bet you, and this was March, right when things hit last year, I'm like, because of what I had seen before with the freaking Taiwanese flood in the hard drive factory and understanding supply chain, at least in a minute bit, I'm like, there's going to be an issue 3 months from now.
Oh, totally.
And we're not going to, and that's exactly what happened.
That was good. Not everybody thought like that. So that was very good forward thinking for you.
One of the ways I was able to quadruple my revenue last year was literally doing the right thing for my client base.
Right.
And then also just accelerating that revenue forward as well. And then being like, cool, well, now we can do new things. We have money to invest in, like going public and stuff. So this is.
Yeah, that's cool. I know money to invest is always cool.
It is, exactly. But I've seen these in my industry, and obviously a lot of industries that come across the board. So where do people go wrong in this? I know you talked about, trying to shrink the supply chain in order to increase profits. That's what they thought. They realized it was a bad idea now.
Yeah.
What should people do going forward?
Well, people meaning entrepreneurs or people meaning the procurement teams of large corporations? Like which people?
It's probably both, because I'm sure that and that's, you're right, because they're definitely two different areas. But, the entrepreneurs, the event that I was at a little bit ago had to do with online in e-commerce, right? Okay. And there's a lot of things that you can do. You can go out there and you can spin up a site real quick and you can sell widgets or whatever else. It's awesome. And there's people that are making millions of dollars doing that. But I thought about them, like, how'd these people fare last year? When, they couldn't
get that. Yeah, they couldn't get their stuff.
Alibaba or whatever, AliExpress or whatever. That was my thought. But then coming to large companies, and even with my acquisitions I'm looking at, I'm asking them, like, how'd you guys fare last year with supply chain? They're like, you know what? We had to go to Amazon for a lot of things, because the major distributors, the Fortune 100 and Fortune 50 distributors that I work with too, have just been out of everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
but it's their supply chain too. So let's start with the entrepreneurs, right? Because we love entrepreneurs. They're all a little bit nutso, which is why we love them so much. Yes. And that's like who we work with all day long, are the entrepreneurs. And so, one thing that they can do is, first of all, if you're eligible, if you are, I'm just going to give you the quick little 101 of supplier diversity. Right. Okay. So the 101 is if your company is owned, operated, and controlled by a woman or women, an ethnic minority, members of the LGBT community, veterans, or someone with a disability or people with disability, then get certified. What does that do? Why is that important? Because if we're going to make all these proclamations and all these announcements and statistics and metrics about how important diversity is, you better measure it, and you can't measure without counting, right? You can't measure it, you can't count. So we have to have the certification to prove who these people are. So if you're eligible, it's one of those categories, get certified first and foremost. Okay. That's what Certify My Company does all day long, because we understand that, in business, sadly, people will sometimes tell you whatever they want to tell you, whatever you want to hear. So this way it's a third party saying, okay, we vetted them. Yes, there's the stories. We all heard them. We hate them. People who lie and get away with it. It happens. Okay, fine. But for the most part, as third parties have vetted your company and said, yes, this person is who they say they are. This company is who they say they are. They truly are owned, operated, and controlled by someone or people of a diverse demographic. And then you can, once you have that status, then you start marketing the hell out of it. And on top of it, you make sure you are also supporting other diverse businesses. Nice. It's not just enough to be like, I'm a diverse business, buy from me. Your wine can be diverse. Your whiskey can be diverse. Your office paper can be diverse. Your legal services can be diverse. There is nothing that you buy that you cannot buy from a diverse supplier.
I love that. And I like wine and whiskey too.
The best one, the best whiskey out there is in Boston. It's called Boston Harbor Distillery.
What?
It's amazing. Women-owned whiskey. It's created by one of the founders of Sam Adams. It is delicious. Rhonda is a whiskey genius.
Do you know Rhonda personally?
I do. She's a friend of mine. It's awesome.
My goodness. Well, you
should have her on. She's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, let's go out and see her.
Let's go to Boston. I die to have a reason to go to Boston for sure. Wow. Before it's cold. I live in Nevada. I don't do cold.
Yeah, I feel you. I live in Chicago and I try not to be here during these months. Yeah.
Oh, for real,
Yeah, summer's cool. I love summer, love spring, but I mean, around this time of year too, it starts going, maybe I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and when I fly, I strategically stay away from like the northern part of when it gets to the winter time of things. Yeah.
No offense taken. I feel you.
Yeah. So then on the corporate side, we just said there's plenty of statistics that say why it's so important to work with diverse suppliers, why it's good for your shareholders, your bottom line. Like if you show these numbers to your CEO, she or he is not going to be like, oh, well, we don't want to make more money. Like our board, our shareholders don't want to make more money. Of course they're going to want to do it. So you just have to make sure that you have the C-suite down saying, yes, it's important to us. Yes, you should do it, and have a full-time position that supports and finds these qualified, capable, diverse suppliers. Now, I know what you're thinking, because this is what comes up all the time. I hate to break it to you, but you are a white male and you're married to a woman, so I'm going to assume you're not part of the LGBT community. I didn't see that you were a veteran anywhere. You might have a disability, because 1 in 5 U.S. adults do. I don't know. We can get into that offline if you want.
Should I examine that?
100%. We can have that conversation. It's my favorite conversation. I have so many, because you know what it is? It's the most underknown demographic, because it's not just can you not see, hear, or walk. It's everything from, Crohn's disease to HIV to thyroid conditions to sleep apnea to arthritis, anything that requires an outside force to manage. If you have sleep apnea and you don't sleep with your CPAP machine, you are useless the next day. Wow. Useless, right? That makes it a disability. If you can't run your business without managing your issue, it's ADHD, anxiety, all these things are. So my company is actually certified as both a woman-owned and disability-owned business. And so we leverage the hell out of both of those certifications. And so, I had this one guy, and he's like, I don't tell many people, but I am a recovering alcoholic. And I'm like, okay, well, you can totally get certified. That is a disability. He said, are you telling me my alcoholism is going to do something good for me? I'm like, I sure am.
Oh my God.
And this other guy was like, well, I'm HIV positive. I'm like, that's great. He's like, is it, Heather?
That's what? Yeah, no kidding. What in the world? I think I have a mental issue. This is what happens. But
1 in 5 U.S. adults have a disability according to the ADA.
Holy mother.
Right. I digress. Anyways. So you work with these companies, be involved in the diversity organizations, and make sure you start counting and measuring and share your wins, because it's, especially now, right? Like the easiest example is retail. We all get retail. Like we're all shoppers, right? I guarantee you're a shopper too. I could tell it's by looking at you. Right?
You know it. Yep.
So I'm saying the easiest example is retail. So about 6 years ago, Walmart did a study. You know, that little company, Walmart, that's like
the little guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So they know that women control about maybe I think it's $6 trillion now in consumer spending in the US. And they make 83 to 85% of all consumer decisions. Wow. So Walmart is a right. Yep. I mean, it's true, right? We all know who makes decisions on the retail, on consumer purchases. And so they wanted to know how they get more of that money in their pocket. So they asked their customers, and then one of the questions was to their female customers. If you went in to buy shampoo, and I'm paraphrasing, so if you Google it and you don't see these exact words, I'm paraphrasing. And they said, if you went in to buy shampoo and one was easily identifiable as women-owned and one wasn't, would you be more likely to purchase the one that was easily identifiable as women-owned? So Rick, you tell me, what percentage of female consumers said they'd be more likely to buy a product if they could easily identify it as women-owned?
Now, interesting. I'm sure it's high, but I would also wonder what the ones that said no, what the reasoning behind that would be. So what's the stat?
90%.
Yeah, it's high, I'm sure. So I like to think of the inverse side. Why would the 1 out of 10 not want to do that?
So, I'll tell you something interesting. When I first heard that question, I was like, I wouldn't do that. I'm smart. I'm sophisticated. I don't go with the flow, right? Yep. And then I was sitting in the audience at a conference, and this woman named Allison, who runs CLR, the cleaning, CLR cleaning, it's women owned, and she took it over from her uncle and her father. It was kind of failing, and she took it over, turned it around, changed up some of the concoctions, the recipes, whatever you want to call them. And she remarketed it, changed the packaging a little bit.
Nice.
And she was talking about this, and she said, our new tagline colloquially is we get rid of yuck. And at the time I only had 3 children. So I was thinking, well, I have a lot of yuck in my house. Mm-hmm. And then I caught myself thinking, and I bet I could use it because she has 3 kids. She uses it. She's not going to tell me to use a product. Another mom's not going to tell me to use a product that's not safe around her kids. So I'm like, oh my goodness, that's exactly
there it is.
What it is, right? So my gut kind of tells me that 3% or that 10% that says no, it's like that one dentist who doesn't say chew Trident or whatever, is that they were kind of going with that same thought that I originally had, right? I'm smart, I'm sophisticated, I'm savvy, I wouldn't do that.
I don't go with the crowd. What?
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, I do actually. But just in case you think that was a fluke. So pre-pandemic, 70% of all wine purchases in the US are made by women. Now I think it's like 83%, actually, 84%, something like that. The pandemic did a number on
How does that compare to whiskey, though? There's the question.
Well, there's actually a whole women in whiskey, which we can, I'm telling you, I got to come back. We're going to talk booze, women-owned booze for an entire hour.
I'm in for that. Yeah. Can you fly here in person and we can do some taste testings of these too?
We totally should. Please, that would be so fun. That would be amazing,
yes.
But not in the winter. I'm not coming to Chicago. No. You come to Las Vegas. That's a better plan, actually.
I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Oh my God, seriously, perfect.
Seriously, we'll be there too.
So they asked Wine Intelligence magazine asked the female wine buyers, would you be more likely to buy it? And sure enough, 90% said yes. So it's just that, first of all, women trust women.
Yeah.
Right. Even though we might be like, oh, I don't like that skirt on her. We trust women. We trust their opinion. Right.
You're killing me. That just stop me in my tracks there.
That's my style. That's how I roll.
Don't like her shirt, but you know what? I'm going to buy all of her shit.
But okay. She has a really good style.
Yes.
Right? Where does she shop? I'm going there.
Oh my gosh. Awesome.
So we trust women. But I'm telling you, it makes perfect sense. And when you buy from these diverse, we've all seen the meme. When you buy from a woman-owned business, you buy a CEO, second house, you buy a little girl dance lessons. You buy a bunch of little girls dance lessons because that's who we hire. Like the people that I hire probably wouldn't work for a traditional company because I have all kinds of lifestyle benefits. I can't pay the most. I just can't, right? I can't compete with these large companies.
Yeah.
But I have the most amazing lifestyle benefits.
Yeah.
So these are a lot of times people who just wouldn't work for a traditional company because it didn't work for them. Some of them are moms who are like, look, I need to be at this time for my kids. I'm like, great, cool. We work around it.
I love that.
So you're not just buying my kids' dance lessons, you're buying their kids' dance lessons.
Yeah, right on. I love that too, because as the owner yourself, that's a weight that I don't feel that most, or really it's a responsibility that we choose to take on, is that a lot of people that will work for us would never truly understand. Because it's like when most will come to work, and this is the entrepreneur side too, and this comes back to diversity in supply chain. Imagine the responsibility that the entrepreneurs have to bear, that weight on their shoulders, in order to make sure that they still have products coming in the midst of a pandemic, so they can continue to sell those products so that their people get paid, so that their people's families can be fed.
And that is one of the reasons why diverse suppliers outperform these other companies time and time again. 99% of the time actually is the statistic out there by the Hackett Group, because they have that sense of responsibility, right? Yeah. If Joe Schmo, who sells for XYZ large company, messes up, they're like, sorry, they're like, pass the buck. You better believe who gets the phone call if there's an issue in my company. It's me.
Right on.
I get the phone call. So I hold that weight on my shoulders. That our diverse businesses, our small businesses, they wear the weight on their shoulder. And that's why they outperform over and over again, because they're like, oh no, that's my reputation now on the line.
Yeah. That's like once a month, multiple times a month. It's like my back's up against the wall here. Yeah. What am I going to do? How am I going to make sure that everybody that works for me gets paid so that their families can be fed?
100%. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Cool. Circus performer.
What you do is cool and all, but let's go back to what you did before.
You like my interview style. I like it.
I do like
it. I always go back to like, hey, my first job was McDonald's, right? My first actual W-2 job. Yeah. And there was so much that I learned and was able to take from that too. See, now I'm getting all sentimental. I mean, I'll go back and be like, hey, it was only a job. And I remember because I was getting paid when I started when I was 15. I had to get a work permit so I could work under the age of 16. My salary, my wage was $4.25 an hour.
God. I know. But look what it did for you. I wish more of these kids these days would do that. I'm telling you.
Yes. Now, whatever, minimum wage, $15. But when you were underage like that, they did not have to abide by minimum wage. And that's still the case. If you want to get a job when you're 14 or 15, you get a work permit, they don't have to abide by minimum wage. There's a lower.
I actually didn't know that.
There's like a lower minimum wage.
Right. My kids aren't quite there yet. My oldest is only 13, but we put her to work all the time.
Yeah. And it was, but the thing that I learned from them was about processes and systems, and how you could go from one McDonald's and have a crappy burger and have the same exact crappy burger taste the same crappy way at another McDonald's.
Yeah.
It was consistent. You knew what to expect when you got there because everything was the same. So, and you could take that route, but still, I do want to hear about the circus. What was that like? If you had some life lessons, awesome. Let's hear them. If not, and it was just a fun experience, let's hear that too.
Tons of life. Well, first of all, so when we moved to California, in Redlands, California, which is where I grew up, hey, Inland Empire, for anybody out there, it's Inland Empire. You got to stick together with your 909 people, My parents took us to the circus. I was like 4 or 5, whatever. My sister was 2 years younger. And I was like, first of all, there was sequins and makeup everywhere. I was like, do you see those costumes? That's all I saw as the first was costumes and sequins and people flipping through the air. And I was like mesmerized, right? So my dad, who's a super square, super mathematical brain, I'm like, Dad, I am going to do that circus. He's like, you're not going to be in the circus. You're ridiculous. I'm like, I'm doing the circus. So next year we signed me up for the circus, and it was like an after school thing, right? It was really originally started by a gentleman named Roy Coble, who was looking for a way to get wayward boys off the street and just teach them like tumbling and whatever to give them something to do after school. And because the Inland Empire now it's like, I always call Redlands the Beverly Hills of the 909, but the whole area was definitely more economically depressed than the rest of California was. Or a lot of California was. And so that's how it started. And then it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then they had all these youth, it was a youth circus. And so the kids participated. And I did it all the way till I was 18 years old. One summer I traveled around New England with a circus called Circus Mercus, which was also like, there were 7 of us who were chosen to go to this exchange program, although nobody came to us. So I don't know what it's called, an exchange program. We didn't exchange anything. So we did it, but I did unicycle tightrope. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I talk about all the time is that when I was little, I did this thing called swinging baseball, swinging wise. There's different apparatus, same skill. You swing, you stick your hand in a loop, you did different tricks, and you put your foot in the loop, you lean back, you do different tricks. It was probably like 6 feet off the ground. In my mind, it was about 36 feet off the ground. Oh, yeah. I was little, and I don't like heights. To this day, I'm not a heights person. So every practice, I'd get up there and I would cry. Every single practice, I would just cry. I was scared. I didn't want to do it. I'm like, I'm going to fall. They're like, you're not going to fall. I would cry. So then the tryouts came. And now this is back in the day, not to date myself, but this is back in the day when if you didn't do it, you actually got cut.
Oh, yeah.
They actually were like, you can't do it. If you're not going to do it, you're out of here. If you're not good.
The participation trophy crowd.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom was like, they called my mom. They're like, we can't let her do this act if she's not going to do it. So my mom was like, are you going to do it or are you going to get cut? Like, well, I get whatever. So I did it. I sucked it up and did it. And I kind of feel like that's how I do a lot of things now. I just suck it up and get it done sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, and also I was always the bottom of the pyramid. I was always like, very strong. And so I was always the bottom of the pyramid. My sister was the top, which sometimes if we got in a fight, wasn't always so great for her. But like, if I didn't show up, there was no pyramid. I'm the bottom of a 3 high. If I don't show up, there's only a 2 high. It's way less impressive. So like the importance of showing up for people, the importance of being part of something that's bigger than you was a huge life lesson that you can't get from like, some of these other sports that are just you.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I was just looking at your Instagram handle too. Heather Cox,
certify my co.
NBC. Is that accurate?
No, that is a different Heather.
I know.
Our Instagram is certify my co. I will tell you something really funny. I was like,
gotcha, cool. I was looking at them like, I don't know about that, but
I was at a conference one time and some guy was like, Heather Cox, like the real Heather Cox. I'm like, the real Heather Cox, but he meant the other, like.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's Certify My Co. That's your Instagram handle. Okay, awesome, very cool. Like, did you do a stint at NBC? I'm like, I don't think it's that Heather Cox. But
no, I should though. I really think I should.
I think
they haven't invited me yet.
Yeah, because as I saw, I'm like, I could see you as an anchor. This could work. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we're like The View. I feel like I'm like more of a View person. Like
that could work.
Talk like one of those. But I was waiting for them to invite me because I feel like I have really good opinions about things.
Yeah. I feel that way too. A little secret about media, you kind of have to force your way in there. If you did, it's like unless you, because I do a lot of global media too, and this is something maybe for people listening. I don't talk about how I do it too much, but I had a media coach, and he taught me how to pitch producers myself. To get on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, and they had some producer ties and all that. But then once you start to build that momentum, because a lot of it has to do with the easiest way to get on TV is to have a book, straight up. Because a lot of the lifestyle shows, not necessarily The View, but lifestyle shows on the local network affiliates will bring authors on all the time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And that's how I started TV almost 4 years ago now. But now because I did the local and regional media, now I get calls because I stepped into, I'm doing big things. Yeah. And now I get phone calls because I have a publicist who actually called me. He wasn't even my publicist. He's like, I need somebody to talk about this stuff. So then came Bloomberg, Newsmax, other amazing things that are just happening right now. But you still have to start, just like we're talking about with McDonald's and the circus.
Yeah, you should start somewhere.
Yes, exactly. You still have to start somewhere. And I posted the other day too on Instagram. You can go look this up right now. Whenever it was October something or other, or September 30th, somewhere around there. But my very first TV appearance ever. Yeah, and I looked
as you go back and you're like,
oh Lord, it's rough to watch, because I was talking about this. I'm like, there was this method that I was, because the other day I was on Fox 5 in Washington, D.C., the biggest Fox affiliate in the nation, talking about all the Facebook outages and all of those things, because that's
the Facebook crisis of 2021.
Exactly. Now I get the calls. I'd never been on Fox 5 DC before, but they're like, who's this guy, Rick Jordan? And now they call me because of everything else that I've done and built the momentum and started small. In order to play the big room, you have to play the small room.
Of course.
Yep,
of course, you have to. But I always love looking back at like the first speaking gig you did or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Because I have an expression I tell clients all the time when we do our diversity masterminds program. I always say, and I get it from one of my mentors, and I always say, like, if you're not embarrassed by the first thing you put out, you waited too long to put it out.
Yeah. I'm going to show you, because we're on video, there's a technique that I'm going to show you that I use, right? Okay. Because now, see, you see me naturally smiling in pretty much everything that I do, right? That was something that I had to learn.
Really?
Really, yes. And I would do it speaking from stage, but then I found out that skill set would not transition over into TV. Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's the craziest thing. Maybe because I had to memorize a segment. I don't know what it was, but so then the coach taught you this thing called a smile reset. So if you couldn't remember to smile while you were talking, like I am right now, you would have this dull face and then do whatever, and then you'd be like, hey, I'm making a really big point right now, and then it'd be if you're just listening to this, go watch it on YouTube, because that's the smile reset, as he would call it. And I was watching this video, I'm like, I look like a creep.
You're like, and this is my point.
Yes, I know. That was the thing.
Like the Chandler smile, right?
Yes.
From Friends.
And we've come full circle in this episode now. That's
right. Well, it's so funny. The reason I jumped in the beginning when you were like talking about DEI, because no one knows what I do. They do not get it. It's totally foreign to most people. So I always tell myself Chandler. I'm like, remember, no one ever knew what Chandler did. I'm always like, I'm like Chandler. No one really knows what I do.
He's a transponster. That's it.
Yeah.
I know.
I know too, but most people didn't. That's the whole premise of the show, right?
I know. Oh my goodness. But Heather, you've been so much fun today. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking about both kinds of diversity in this world that we have now, and for diving into this. Yeah. At Certify My Co is where you can find Heather on Instagram, and certifymycompany.com. Yes. Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you.